Good morning, everybody. My name is Pim van Baarsen, CEO of the Silverstone Technology Cluster. We have a very exciting event for you today, all about opportunities in defense and security. I'm about to hand over to our chair, Ross, who's going to do all the introductions. I just want to give a very quick sort of housekeeping slash admin briefing, if you like. So we're going to run through the presentations at pace. They're going to be quite short and sharp. We're not actually going to do questions at the end of every presentation. Instead, what we'll do is we'll have an overall panel right at the end with all the speakers, and you can put your questions there. So the best thing to do is that if you have any questions or you listen to some of the speakers and some of the questions come up, please, if you look at the top right-hand corner of the screen, if you look at the message tab, you should see a Q&A tab within that. Can you please put your questions in there, just sort of type them in, and then at the Q&A panel at the end, Ross will run through all the questions and make sure all your questions get answered. So that's really the way that we would like to run this event, where we have a complete panel at the end with everybody. So please put all your questions in the Q&A. It is possible as well, when you see some of the speakers going on and you like what they say or you want to react in a way, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you will see a little reactions button, which is like a little smiley face. If you click on that, you can see a couple of emotions that you can throw on the screen. So by all means, interact with us in that way. So a little bit of fun. So that's kind of all the housekeeping done. So please put all your questions in the Q&A. We look forward to seeing them. And we have a lot of experts in the room, so do make sure that you use your opportunity to ask the questions. But that's all the admin stuff done. So I shall now hand over to Ross for the introductions. Ross, over to you.
Thank you, Pim, and good morning, everyone, from me. We have a lot of positive feedback about this program that we use for these web-based events. So hopefully it'll work for you. And don't be shy with clicking on your emoji buttons and getting involved and interacting. And please do put your questions in the Q&A section. Well done. I thought that might start something. And I'll look at that as we go along and make sure I cover as much as possible today for everyone. So it is great to be here with you. I think this promises to be a really interesting session. Hopefully something that will provide you with new business opportunities. It is a particularly good moment for me, I think, as chair of Silverstone Technology Cluster and commercial director for Silverstone Park, because we sponsor Be the Business Trailblazer to help bring their focus and business skills to this area to you. Yeah, a big thank you to Danica, who'll be here networking with you today from Be the Business, because Danica's helped to set this up with Pim and with Andrew Cowdery. Andrew Cowdery, who you will be hearing from later, is our Be the Business business fellow. And he's a key reason, to be honest with you, that we wanted to be a trailblazer and work with Be the Business, because we want access to his knowledge and expertise working in industry to benefit your businesses. So Andrew has pursued this idea of this workshop today. So big thank you to him for his work in pulling this agenda together, making it pertinent to the needs of our SMEs at Silverstone Technology Cluster. So it's specifically designed with you in mind. And the other things about Be the Business that are really good is the 10 advisory boards that have been set up in it took no time at all for members of Silverstone Technology Cluster to recognise the benefit of doing that. And we can do more of those. Be the Business have said they want to do another 10 boards. So if you aren't already benefiting from that, let him know and we'll get that sorted. And we've also got 5 individuals accessing the specialist expertise one-to-one through the mentoring program, and there's lots more of that available too. So hopefully, if you're not accessing that sort of individual specific advice for your business yet through the Be the Business Trailblazer, then please talk to Pim, because you're missing an opportunity. It's free, but it is highly valuable. It's free because Silverstone Park is sponsoring it for you. As Pim said, there will be a Q&A session at the end. So yeah, please do put your questions and I will go through those and put them to the panel at the end. So then turning to today's agenda and what we've got in store. Andrew and Danica have put together a list of speakers, and they'll provide you with all you need to know to get started or make progress in the defence and security sectors. We have Peter, a national security expert, who's going to talk about the case for change in the defence and security sectors. And this is really about how defence and security need to engage more with academics and SMEs. So you'll hear about that. We've got Andrew from Make UK, one of our STC partners, who work, as you know, with manufacturing in the UK. They're going to talk about the impact of the government's recent focus on social values and how SMEs are going to need to respond to that agenda if they want to win business in the defence sector. We've then got Susan from BAE Systems looking at the Tempest programme and the industrial strategy for the UK defence sector. And then our own business fellow, Andrew Cowdery, who's co-chair of the Defence Growth Partnership, and obviously our Be the Business Fellow. He's going to talk about opportunities in aerospace and defence and how the government's changing its approach so that it can work with industry. So everything's opening up for you guys. So this is why this is such a big opportunity for us as a cluster and as you as individual businesses. And we're going to start with our own Pim van Barsen, talking with Simon Holloway from RML. And Simon's going to talk about his experiences at RML and Cosworth engaging with the defence sector. So if I can just take a moment to say a few words about Simon, and then we'll get straight into that first session for you. So Simon is and RML have been a long-standing member of Silverstone Technology Cluster and have really played their part to get things going for us over the last first few crucial years. Simon's a long-standing member, and he's been personally involved in the Autonomous Connected Electric and Shared Special Interest Group within Silverstone Technology Cluster, leading the agenda there. He is Commercial Director for RML Group, and he was previously the Business Development Manager at Cosworth. And in both companies, he has led the companies in diversification from motorsport into parallel sectors. His works included supplying directly to the MOD and to tier one suppliers in the defence sector and electronics. And Simon's going to share now some of his experiences of being an SME supplier in the defence area. So Simon and Pim, over to you for the first session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ros. Much appreciated. So what we thought we would do is we actually will do this as a sort of short interview format. Simon, we can't. There you are. Very good. So really, so as Ros already alluded to, Simon has a huge amount of experience, and obviously, you know, is very able to bring an SME point of view. So I just wanted to ask a number of quick questions on sort of his experience and how he's got on. So Simon, if you're an SME, how would you approach the defence sector if you're unsure if what you're offering is even of interest? How would you go about that, or how have you done that?
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Pim and Ros, for the introduction. So as an SME, when you look and defence is not a sector you're already in, it's a little bit daunting. It's obviously a big area, lots of suppliers, lots of potential as well. So I think part of the problem is companies within our sector often think, well, what have I got to offer? Maybe I supply parts for racing cars or some services and things like that. And it's a little bit daunting to start with, to think, you know, how can I approach that? But what I'd say is it's not always about supplying a product. You know, the sector is always interested in novel approaches and different ways of doing things. So think about how you may be able to apply some of the technology or techniques or methods that you use in the sector, and this could be something that they're very interested in. A project that we did here at RML, for example, just as a bit of a case study, was for a tier one supplier in the sector rather than directly with the MOD, and they approached us around a problem that they were trying to solve. I can't talk about the specifics, but it was a problem that they were trying to solve within their business. It's an area that they've been supplying a service for a long time, and it was leading to lots of problems. And they came out to us and asked, well, how would you approach this if you had the same problem in motorsport? And we went around that with the techniques that we would use and how we would do it. And we engaged with that client and ended up improving their reliability, reducing their operating costs, reducing downtime on what they were supplying. And it was all about just them looking at approaching the issue in a different way. So it wasn't about providing a different product. It was about doing it differently. And generally within our sector, we tend to do things really quickly. We've got races and deadlines to meet, so we approach a lot of things from an engineering point of view in taking some quite calculated risks to cut development times and improve throughput. And this is a little bit alien to the defence sector, so it's used to doing everything long term, lots of testing and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of open minds now and ideas within the sector to look at doing these things differently and engaging with SMEs like us who are flexible and agile and can do things differently. And
quite happy to fail fast and fail often to get to results.
Exactly, learn from your failures, as they say. So yeah, exactly that.
So what would you say were sort of barriers to entry for SMEs into the sector? Because as you say, it can be quite daunting to engage with some of the big primes. But are there any other barriers to entry that people should be aware of, and how can we overcome them?
I mean, I think that one of the biggest issues is, as I said, it's very daunting. So it's not only about what you can offer, it's then how do I actually talk to the right person to try and see what I can offer makes sense. So I think a lot of it's about, as in any new area that you look at, it's about making contacts and it's about networking and knowing who to talk to. I'd say my approach in previous times that I've done this has been to attend a few trade shows and seminars like this, for example, and you can very quickly start to build up a good network of people. And what I've found is that Vector are very open to give you advice and also pass on contacts of other people that you might want to talk to. So I think keep an eye on the media and the information that's going on. Try and attend some of the trade shows or the seminars and the specialist things that go on, and try and just start to build your network. And quite quickly, people will start to know your brand, and you'll start to get inquiries come through. I think as well, you've got to be aware that obviously there's quite a tender process when you do go for some work. And it can be quite a long-winded process. So you will have to provide a fair amount of information, and it will take you quite a bit of time to respond to that. So I think it's important to bear in mind that you are going to have to go through that from a sales point of view. There are free portals and things like that where you can get information about what tenders are available and what is out there. And the other presentations today, I think, are going to provide a lot of that kind of direction for people. But it's very similar to most people in our sector will have answered FIA commercial tenders or Innovate and APC. It's no different to those kinds of things. So don't be put off by it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, and it kind of alludes to sort of my next question, because running an SME is really hard work. You're running around all the time putting out fires. Well, ideally not, but there's a lot going on anyway. So to what extent, is there a feeling that this might just be too difficult, or is in a too hard box, and you kind of you just don't have the time to commit to it because of your day-to-day running and stuff? What would you say to that? I mean, is it worthwhile? Should you do it, or what? How did you approach that?
Yeah, I think it is. You've got to go into it. It's not going to be a quick fix for you. So it's not like you're going to walk. Well, you might do, but it's unlikely you're going to walk into and get some business tomorrow for it. The cycle times and the time to do your prospecting takes a long time. But it's well worth it in the long term. It's all about long-term business, and it's different timescales to what we're used to in our sectors. what I've found is, in motorsport generally, our projects are quite and our businesses run with quite peak and trough type scenarios. You'll be very busy because you're running a race program, delivering something very quickly, and then things will go quiet. With the defence sector, once you're involved in it, once you do win some business, it's really good at providing long-term stability and a sort of underpinning of work for you. So it may take a long process, and you can do that in the background as well. A lot of the things are not urgent, so you can take your time and fit it in amongst those urgent projects that you're working on in your normal sector, and just continue just growing your business and getting it known in the defence sector. But long term, a lot of these projects you're looking at between 10 and 30 years life for a product that's in the sector. So it's really good if once you get involved in it that it continues for some time.
So try to play the long game and be prepared to play the long game. Exactly
that. Yeah.
Excellent. So from your experience, I'm sure we'll hear from the presentations later on this as well. But in your experience, is the defence sector open to novel suppliers and people coming in and doing things differently? Is there a welcoming atmosphere, or do they stick to what they know? What's been your experience in that? It appears to be becoming more and more open, and I think we're going to see that again in some of the presentations later. But it's what I've found, especially in the last few years, is that they're actually the companies, both the MOD and the tier ones, are looking for other approaches. I think budgets, defence budgets are getting reduced, and that they're looking at options of how can they do things differently, do things more cost effectively. I think as well, and learn from general business rather than necessarily what's been done traditionally. We have found resistance on some projects that we've done where we've actually won a project and we're delivering it, but the people within the business are very reluctant to change the way they do things because they've always done it that way. But once you can then show them the benefits of it, and a lot of the time reducing costs and improving reliability and getting something working and available and tested in a shorter time scale, they pretty much engage with it very quickly. And I think that again, I believe it. We're going to see that in some of the presentations later. There seems to be a sea change a little bit in knowing that they've got to start engaging with SMEs and using some of our business knowledge and IP and techniques to try and make the budgets go further almost. Yeah, I like your phrase at the start, is that because budgets are reducing, there's a good opportunity, which seems very counterintuitive. But I can see why that would be. Yeah. Just could you talk us a little bit about sort of the tendering process and how long is it? How complicated is it? Do you need to dedicate somebody specifically? Are there other people you can rely on? How does that work? Because you indicated earlier it's quite a long term. It can be quite involved. Do you need to bring somebody in for that specifically, or can you do it in-house? How difficult is it?
It depends on the business, obviously, and what you have from a commercial team within your business. But it can be quite a lengthy process. Generally, there'll be a pre-qualification step. There'll be a RFI step where they're putting out for interest, and you have to go through that stage before you even get to the quoting stage, and then you'll have a full RFQ to respond to. So it is quite a long process. If you've got somebody commercially astute in the business that's used to answering tenders, as I said, it's no bigger effort than putting an APC or a Innovate or a niche vehicle network tender together. So, but you just need a little bit of that commercial background. What I would say as well is there are experts out there that you can rely on and contact that will help you with that process. And step you through it. And to be honest, once you've done the first one, a lot of the information is repetitive. So, once you've got what I'd say is if you do answer one, make sure you file the information you've provided so you can find it again, because the next time you get asked, probably 80% of the questions will be exactly the same. It's then just what you're providing that will be different. So yeah, it is quite a process, but if you're commercially astute, you can follow it through and take your time. And what I have found as well is don't always think about you need to be supplying the MOD directly. The tier ones are really interested in engaging with SMEs, and I think again we'll see what their derivative is later, and they're by doing that, they're obviously trying to win business themselves with using the SME as a supplier to that. So they're also will help you through a lot of those stages, because they want everybody to be successful, if that makes sense. So we have found that when we're engaged there with a tier one, quite often somebody there will help us because they want us to be successful, and it's a tick in the box for them. So
it can be a bit arduous, but there is help out there. So yeah.
Definitely,
it's worthwhile engaging. Very, very good. Just to finish up upon, what's your like number one top tip, or three, if you like, on for an SME wanted to engage in defence? What is your key piece of advice that you would depart on them?
I think, as I opened with, one of the key things is don't think that you don't have anything to offer, because it's not always about products. Looking at novel ways of approaching things and different ways of doing things are just as important to the sector as having a novel product to offer. And from what I've seen, there are opportunities. Sometimes you have to think a little bit out of the box, and how do I take something that I've been supplying for years into motorsport or automotive, and how does that apply in a defence sector? But I think, and what I found is that a lot of the people are very open in talking about that, and we, from a motorsport point of view, it's always quite exciting, and if you're lucky, you hit the one Formula One fan that's in the defence sector, and you can engage and talk around that, and they're really excited about it. What I have also found through that is, and your networking, is quite often people move around. So you may make one contact at one, either in the Ministry of Defence, and then they go to a tier one, or they move tier ones. And you end up then getting a phone call from them again when they're at another company. So that networking is really key, which is obviously what Silverstone Technology Cluster is all about.
Yeah, and building relationship, and it can really pay off. That's excellent. Well, Simon, thank you very much for that. Really, really good stuff. I know that you'll be joining the panel later as well. So again, if anybody has any questions, please put them in Q&A, and we can put questions to Simon later. But thank you very much for that. I think it was a very useful insight to see what you as an SME have done to successfully engage. I mean, obviously we can't talk about the actual work that you did, but it was really nice to get an insight on how you've gone about it and how complicated or not it was. So thank you very much for that. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you.
Right, so we'll now move on to the next session. So I'll invite Andrew to the stage. So the next session is with Andrew Cowdery and Susan Addison, who are really, so Susan is from BAE Systems, and Andrew, as Ross said, is the co-chair for the Defence Growth Partnership. So they've got a really interesting session to talk to you about the defence sector. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts now, but let me invite Andrew to the stage, and then Susan as well, and then I'll also try to sort the slides out. So if you bear with me while I'll do all of that. But Andrew should be here. Andrew, can you switch on? There you go.
Hi.
Right, Andrew, I'll hand over to you, and then in the meantime, I'll fire up the PowerPoint presentation. So give me a second, but please start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's a great opportunity for me and Susan to give you a short, I would say, whistle-stop tour of some of the changes that are going on in the defence and security sector. I've been in the business for over 40 years, so I've experienced a lot of change in the defence sector, primarily driven by Ministry of Defence. But what I'm seeing at the moment is a significant advancement and acceleration in that change process. And it has a lot to do with the need and importance of the collaborative model that is needed in order to successfully deliver all of the defence capabilities that the UK Armed Forces and international defence market requires from the UK. So we've split this approach. I'll do an introduction around changes that are going on at the government and industry level, primarily around the science and technology areas, and also defence and security industrial strategy. And then Susan will, I would say, add some real flavour to it and excitement around the next generation of combat air platform, which builds on all of the government and industry work around collaborative programmes. So in the minutes I've got available, I'm going to just do a very, I would say, a quick review of what's gone on in government over the last 2.5 years. And it does represent significant change from what I've seen over the last 2 or 3 decades. And that is, we have a government that is very keen not only to want change, but is also prepared to invest in industry and other government departments to make that change a reality. And it started in probably 2019, but in 2020, the Science and Technology Strategy was announced, which gave, I would say, increased investment opportunities from government to both academia and to industry in the areas of advanced technology. The Chief Scientific Officer talks about science and technology as not looking at next generation, but the next generation of capability beyond that. And so we are looking very much at what will happen and what will be required by the defence community, probably over the period of the next 20 to 30 years. The Science and Technology Strategy identifies a number of key performance requirements. Next slide, by the way, Pim, if you're up, please.
Yes, and could I very quickly get a thumbs up from the audience if everybody can see the slides okay? Because it looks a bit different on my screen, but I'm getting lots of thumbs up. Good, thank you.
Excellent, well done, good, I'll keep going then. Thanks, Pim. So the Science and Technology Strategy is now published. You can read it and you can see that in that strategy, there is strong evidence, certainly from the UK MOD, that they want to invest in both industry and academia around these really important areas of technology. And they've also identified and published 5 of their critical technology areas that they want to be involved in. And they've listed those in terms of the way in which they wish and they see defence requirements in the future. So the focus is very much on science and technology, and that's backed up by the investment and the announcements that have also been made fairly recently with the formulation of the National Science and Technology Council, which is a high-level government body responsible for not just defence, but also wider science and technology investment. So from the science and technology point of view, SMEs should be really interested and excited in the opportunities that that represents, not only for those that are already in defence and security, but also in those that see possibilities for the technology that they're involved in actually having application in the defence and security sector. The other area is in Defence and Technology Framework. This was published in 2019, and it sets out the key areas of technology that government, that industry and government are working on jointly. And again, there were 7 technology areas that were identified, some of which I know would be relevant to the SMEs in the STC cluster. In addition to that, they've also identified areas and applications that you could use these technologies to further develop. And again, these are all exciting areas that affect us all, not only commercially, but in the defence environment. And I'll talk specifically about the space, the platforms, whether they be land, sea or air. The next generation of communication systems that are resilient to interference and also the importance of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Again, there's a lot of information that is out there now, which the MOD previously probably wouldn't have shared. They wouldn't have been open and transparent in the way that we see today. So I think there are changes that are going on which demonstrate on the MOD side that they want to engage more readily and more frequently in that sort of information sharing. There is also a number of what they call defence innovation priorities. And those that are familiar with the Defence and Security Accelerator will know that there is a large sum of money, about £800 million made available over 10 years to invest and to encourage SMEs and academia to get involved in some of these innovation challenges that are represented across a number of key innovation areas, particularly around the domains in the defence sector. What I'd like to just talk about is also the importance of data management and the way in which, again, the MOD have now established their Chief Information Officer, and they've recently appointed a Chief Data Manager. This is to allow access again. All the material that's been generated in government has always been kept fairly secure. But the MOD want to move to a point where they're sharing some of that information to help industry and academia build on the investments that have already been made. So again, I would encourage, and I'm encouraged by the strong pull from the MOD to want to engage industry, and particularly again SMEs and innovative companies in getting involved in that strategy. Next slide, please, Pim. What is really important and what was announced in March were three major changes, or I would say revisions to the way of thinking inside of the MOD. One was the integrated review, which gave the position of what UK wanted to be globally and highlighting some of the threats and opportunities for the UK. There was then what was called the Defence Command Paper, which looked specifically at what the integrated force in the UK required by way of requirements and challenges going forward. And the third piece of that puzzle was what was called the Defence and Security Industrial Strategy. For the first time since 2005, we had MOD developing an industrial strategy. And why do they need that? They needed it because they need industry and academia working closely with the MOD and with other government departments to make the changes that they require a reality. In addition to that, the announcements of the spending review, not only did it give Defence a 4-year settlement, all the other departments only ended up with a 1-year settlement. I think they'll be working hard this year to make it a longer period. But they also made available 24 billion of additional funding over the 4 years for the MOD, both for their equipment budget and also for the investment in research and development and science and technology. For me, that's really encouraging because it not only means they want to move in that direction in terms of an ambition, but they're also prepared to put money behind it. In addition to that, it links very closely to those who are close to the Defence Equipment and Support Organisation. If you read their corporate plan for 2025, you'll see a lot of the Defence and Security Industrial Strategy reflected in what is one of the largest procurement organisations in government, and they clearly are very important for SMEs, as is the industry itself in terms of prime contractors. And finally, just to talk about the way in which government is linking together what it does in defence with other parts of government. That's always been a challenge for me to see how integrated government is. We're now seeing with the UK innovation strategy, recently announced, in fact, a week or so ago, we're now seeing some very joined up and integrated approach to the way in which government wishes to invest quite a significant amount of money in research and development across sectors. The reason they're investing across sectors is they want to join up all the good work, all of the innovation, all of the agility across industry and academia to the benefit of the wider UK government economy, and also as part of the overall government's approach to prosperity and levelling up. So I'll finish here. All I can say is, just as a top tip, is those on the call, don't be shy. We are looking, I would say, to get your thoughts, ideas, and to get you interested in the defence and security sector. And for those that are not involved, don't be put off. The sector has a significant appetite to listen and learn from what you have to offer. Over to you, Susan.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Well, hi everybody, Susan Addison, Procurement Director for the Air Sector, and I'm a Be the Business Fellow as well, just newly appointed. But I'm absolutely delighted to talk to you about an opportunity. Let's bring that alive and let's show how real we are and what we mean. So a really exciting opportunity within the defence sector, where we can and will be collaborating and opening up our existing supply chains to meet the future requirements that we need within the defence sector. And it's a real win. This isn't just about a win for our customers and the defence capability, but the approach the UK government's taking to this is as much around the national strategy, around industry, around that capability as well. And you as SMEs are absolutely part of that strategy, which we'll talk about more. So what is this opportunity? Well, it is the future combat air system, and fantastic timing. If you actually look at the news in the press today, we've just been awarded a significant £250 million contract to invest in this area and this activity. So absolute commitment to this future activity. So that's a real positive. So please read the news in the press today, and you'll be able to read a bit more in detail around that. And when you read about that, you'll certainly see those messages around, yes, military and defence capability, but what does that mean for industry? What does that mean for the economy? And what does that mean from a national strategy perspective, which absolutely plays to what Andrew was saying. If we just go to the next slide, please, Pim. This is what really brings it alive. So if that's the requirements, that's the contract, how are we responding to that? And we're responding to that with something called Team Tempest. And that is a collaboration from both the UK MOD government, but also some of the key industry players within the sector. So BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce, Leonardo, and MBDA. And it's a joint collaboration, joint team. We're investing as part of this process as well to absolutely design what this programme looks like for the future. And while we always kind of focus on the thing, the 6th generation fighter jet, which is absolutely very exciting, it's actually more than that, because as we think about defence capability for the future, it's got to be about that digital environment. Information advantage will be absolutely key. How does that fit in with the system network of how that jet integrates with the rest of the systems in that space to get the required outcome? So it's a much bigger piece than just necessarily the product we have on the page there, but it is a really good icon to get your head around. And I was just fascinated listening to Simon. I'm going to reach out to Simon after, because it absolutely isn't just around the technology on the jet. This is absolutely around that digital advantage, but the how. And I really resonate with Simon. Having been in the defence sector and BAE Systems for 25 years, we absolutely know the need to change. What's driving us? Well, one, we're being driven by the customer, and you're going to hear from Andrew Kinniburgh today, who's going to say some of the endorsements from the government that will be driving us to absolutely involve SMEs and wider business. But we also recognise that we know we need to change. So the requirement against this capability is we have to do it cheaper and quicker than we have ever done before. And just some of the scenarios that Simon was talking about in terms of how you can apply the knowledge, thinking, your approaches to what we need to do here is absolutely fundamental. And we do need help. I am absolutely holding my hand up that we do need help. We are a very long-term business and approach. We've got fantastic engineers. But we absolutely know that there's more to do around that how, and also to Simon, we are very logical, so that ability to articulate the benefit is a real win and a real sell into our business, just in terms of some of the cultural mindsets that we have. So I would absolutely encourage you from the how perspective, as well as some of the what in terms of the technology. What does this mean for you? Well, as I say, this contract that we're putting in place is absolutely there to stimulate R&D. It's very at the early stages. It's about how we do it. It's about the technologies at this point. But as part of this contract, really looking for examples about how we stimulate regional growth, etc. So, you know, there's a real opportunity for us to work jointly together to do that. So what's the takeaway that I would leave you with? Let's get together. Let's absolutely join together. Let's understand what you have to offer. We can share a bit more about this programme as well. And I've also got Gemma Foster. So Gemma is here today at one of the tables. Gemma is leading the supply chain activity on behalf of BAE Systems, and we've also got Chris Pitt and her team who's looking at the transformation. So some of the stories and barriers to entry that we've talked about, we absolutely want to hear. So there's a real offer out there to reach out to us, engage with us, and we will see how we can absolutely align and look at some of the opportunity spaces around this. But I will now hand you over to Andrew Kinniburgh.
There was a question here that we can take for Simon Holloway that came up in his session, and it might be that others can answer this. And it was, will joining JOSCAR, which is JOSCAR, help with getting access to defence primes? And that was from Mark Small, and he's the area sales manager at Avid. So, Mark, or the panel, does anyone have an answer to that question? Can I ask someone to answer that question now? Maybe, Mark, you could tell us what JOSCAR is if I bring you on the stage. I've invited you to the stage, Mark. You can explain your question, and then I think we might have a raised hand.
Oh yeah, you can hear me okay? Yeah. JOSCAR, we were invited by Leonardo to join JOSCAR. It's kind of a accreditation scheme run by Helios, which enables our SMEs contact to primes on prime contracts. It's more of a kind of a certification program where you fill out all your details, you know, your all your social, economical kind of attributes to the company, your financial status, your ISO quality status. So it's an all-encompassing kind of platform, which the primes, well, the main primes are on there, which allows access for SMEs to get to. And obviously, we're in the process of looking at this. We've been invited by Leonardo currently to join this. And I'm saying, has anyone else had any benefits of this? Any kind of, does it make much of a difference? You know.
Andrew, do you want to respond? Are you happy to respond on that one?
Yes, Mark, hi. Ex-employee, by the way, of Leonardo. So the answer is yes. JOSCAR is a recognised way of creating information once and using many times. And it's an area that clearly government wants to move in the same direction. And therefore, I would encourage you to do so. Once that information has been lodged on Helios, they are the sort of platform provider, but it is supported by all the large primes and clearly by ADS as a trade association, and it works very well. So I was involved in it in my previous role. It's building a reputation as providing information both to primes, but also beneficial to to those that have registered, because that information is made available. And as I say, you don't have to go through it every time there is an opportunity to put bids on the table. So
Yeah.
the answer is yep, and happy to support if you need any help.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank
Yeah.
you both. And I've got another question here for Simon. Simon's actually wants to come on the stage. If I bring Simon on the stage, did you want to add to what Andrew just said there, Simon?
Yeah, so the only thing I'd add to that is I believe the JOSCAR system you have to pay for. And when we were approached to join it before, we were actually advised to only join it if you were expecting to get business through it. So you had a specific opportunity. So I agree with all the comments that it does make a lot of sense. And you only have to do it once and you get access to bids and things. But I believe there is a cost.
Yes, there's a cost to it. Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Mark.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take you off the stage now, and then I've got another question. So if I go to that question, it's actually from Denica. Question for Simon: which trade shows do you recommend for building a network in this sector? I'll just bring Denica to the stage, and I'll keep you on, Simon, so that you can answer the question directly. Anyone else wants to chip in, just put your hand up.
So I've found the SEI to be quite a good exhibition to go to. We made quite a few contacts at that exhibition previously, and I've also done a few smaller ones. Some of the trade associations, both motorsport and automotive, like SMMT, etc., also do some like visits the primes and that kind of thing. So we've done a few of those previously, but personally I found the SEI to be quite a good show to go to be able to network. There's a lot of people there, and being able to go around and talk to the relevant both primes and MOD contacts quite good. There's also quite a few like seminars or talks that go on at those meetings, so you can at those events, so you can go and sit in and learn a bit more information about what's going on as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Simon. Is that what you were hoping for?
Yeah, it was fascinating listening to Simon, and just wanted a bit more information. That's really helpful. Thank you, Simon.
And then I've got Andrew, who's asked to join as well to answer a question. So, Andrew, please come in.
Yeah, just to add really to Simon's comments, there's a lot of opportunities. One of the organisations I co-chair is the Defence Growth Partnership. Within that is what's known as a Defence Solutions Centre. And there is a number of communities of interest that are often asking for inputs, particularly from small, medium-sized businesses around their capabilities, what they have to offer. So in addition to the exhibitions, there are, I would say, multiple requests from the government and from industry to get SMEs involved. So if you have a particular area of capability and competence, then I'm sure the Defence Solutions Centre at Farnborough is also a rich source of advice and opportunity for you. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Andrew. And I've also got Peter, who's wants to add.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, it's John. Actually, can you hear me? Okay.
Sorry. It just says Peter on the screen. Apologies.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Don't worry. It was just a subtle point I wanted to ask Simon if he could, because he was talking about working with government and working with industry, and I was just thinking about what's his advice or his magic formula about getting the technical expertise, the customer requirements, and the delivery platform all working together in sync. And what was his advice about bringing those entities together? Because the people who might be designing it and the factory, for example, that delivers the product might not be the same. So how is he negotiating all that, sort of getting the delivery part right?
Great. Okay, I'm just getting Simon on the stage to answer that. Sorry, at that point, Peter and John had to leave. It's just the way the system works. But yeah, Simon.
Thanks, John. That's quite a question. So I think one of the things that we are used to in the motorsport industry and most of the Silverstone Technology Cluster members is that we all work collaboratively, because we are all quite small SMEs generally, and we really rely on our supply chains to deliver the projects and the programs that we do. We can't be geared up to, for example, deliver every element of a car. And our industry's got a lot of experience of working collaboratively as groups on delivering something with a common goal. And our common goal is to be on a grid at a particular weekend and hopefully be in the lead at the checkered flag. So I think that's something from our industry that might be something that could be gained. It is that collaborative working and that supply chain mechanism. Most of our suppliers are in a similar way to the cluster within an hour's drive of us, and we all work very much as a close-knit team, and we consider our supply chain to be part of our business in getting to that common goal. And again, that's what the cluster's all about, is us all working together and networking. So often, again, in that, it could be that we're the manufacturer, for example, of a race car, but I'm bringing composites from one supplier, I'm bringing maybe CFD and aero analysis from another company, and I'm bringing that all together to a car to go to a grid. So I think we're quite used to doing that. On one of the projects in defence I worked with, we were working with the MOD, a tier 1 and a tier 1 supplier to try and get to a common goal at the end of it, and it was all about very open communication and encouraging that open dialogue and trying to allow all of the parties to gain an advantage from it and sort of creating a win-win scenario. So we were looking at not only the OEM, but we were trying to solve a problem that they had as the tier 1 supplying MOD. We were trying to help them solve their problem, but we were also helping their supply chain in what they were doing and advising them how they could improve as well. And it was all about being very open amongst everyone so that everybody could gain from it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Okay, I'm in touch with Pim in the background, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to hear from Andrew on the from Make UK, but I do know, and Pim does know, the sort of things he was going to talk about. So we will go to that in a minute. What I'll do is I'll just remove Danica, and then I'm not sure. I'm going to try and remove you, Simon, from the stage if I can. Give me 1 second to work out. That's it. Okay, you've done it yourself. Well done. And a couple of things that I wanted to respond to the general discussion before we do that. One thing, obviously, now Simon is saying the key to this, the start of it, is obviously not to be shy and to go out there and realise that you have something to offer. And the questions have been, well, where do I need to go? Today, here is where you need to go. And being part of Silverstone Technology Cluster with access to Andrew and Be the Business, this is the point of 2021 and the trailblazer, that you have that step up, that leg up that others have not had, to get that network going now, to fast track through that process, to get that understanding. And guess what? It's great timing, because the MOD has suddenly realised that it needs you, and they do. And so there's an exciting opportunity. The difficulty is going to be getting it right. But the point is that the people that are presenting to you today are open to suggestion and want to try things to make the difference, to protect this country and security on the ground, as you've heard. So I think the issue that you may have had with knowing what to do and who to talk to is being fast-tracked. That's today and following up from today. The difficult stage is going to be working with a new environment, with things like co-creation. So I think you're going to need to bear with the people that are talking to you today, and get a bit of grace, a bit of you know, time spent working out together how you can work and collaborate, I think. But clearly, from what BAE are talking about, there is real, actual opportunity out there now. And also with Andrew talking about the 800 million that's been available since 2017 until 2027, things like that, if you're interested. And obviously we'll scoop up a load of links for you and send them out after this so that you can follow up and make those next steps. And I can see Andrew come to the stage. One more thing, just in my train of thought to respond, as we're having a bit of a discussion there. And that is the setup of the UK's high-tech supercluster. So in the Oxford to Cambridge arc now, we've agreed with the other high-tech organisations, Cambridge Network, Cambridge Wireless, Oxford Innovations, that we're going to work together to help you as our business community to network with each other, trade with each other. That's something that we agreed a couple of weeks ago, and it's out there, and we're just starting to work out what that means in practice. We think it's really good for all of the businesses that we work with across the whole of the ARC. And I think that's good news for the people on the call that are giving the presentations, because what we're saying is if you work with the STC, we can give you access through to some other innovative technologies across the geography. And it's good news for the companies in the STC, because you might be sitting there thinking, well, I've got one piece of the jigsaw puzzle and I need others to work with. And the others that I'm going to work with could come from just close by in Oxford or Cambridge, okay?
Audio. I've got share screen.
Can I mute Andrew? Yeah, I think Andrew, really, bless him, I can repeat some of this stuff, and Nigel, we can talk further about the opportunities and how this all knits together. But I think without further ado, and because we were trying to finish, I think about 11:40, we'll come back to the stuff I just mentioned on the supercluster at the end, just to reiterate that. But Andrew, if you're ready from Make UK, are you happy to crack on with your presentation?
Ros, yes, I'm really hoping to. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay, and we can see the presentation, and I'm so sorry that you had difficulty.
Not at
hopefully
all.
The team sorted you out. Look, you're getting lots of cheers and claps. So,
the late Mr. Kinniburgh, I must apologise. I spent about the last 45, 50 minutes with the wonderful Jackie Affleck from STC and two
Trojan
people from my own organisation and from Airmeet. So
brilliant, we got there. Did not defeat us. The problem has been solved. I'll leave the stage, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Ros. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to carry on, even though I'm so late. Just briefly picking up, I could hear the chat and the questions on JOSCAR. I would correct Andrew, actually. It's not just ADS that are involved in JOSCAR. It's all of the trade associations involved in defence. And Make UK Defence is a huge fan of JOSCAR. I sit on the steering board along with ADS and many others. We think it's a really effective system. What it isn't is a guarantee to win business, which I'm sure you all understand that already. But what it does do is to provide evidence of a minimum standard of compliance, really, with the main sort of elements of being a defence supplier in the UK. What Make UK Defence is arguing for is that the requirement to be nominated by a prime is removed. We don't like that. We think it discriminates against SMEs and mid-tiers. And we'd also like to see the removal of the charges for the larger SMEs. It's free to access for the very smallest businesses. I think it's under £1 million or under £5 million of turnover, and Helios Consulting will confirm those numbers. But we're big fans of it, and we think it's got a much bigger role to play potentially in defence. But what we're arguing for with the MOD is that it actually should be a mandated system. And I know there are commercial challenges to that, but we would really encourage that. I've dived in without introducing myself, but I'll very briefly just say I'm Andrew Kinniburgh. I'm Director of Make UK Defence, which is the Defence Trade Association of Make UK, which is the manufacturers organisation or the voice of British manufacturing or UK manufacturing. So we're one of the Business Five. We sit alongside the CBI, the Institute of Directors, the Federation for Small Businesses, and the British Chambers of Commerce. And I run the defence bit of it. I've been kicking around defence for a few years now, around 25, so beginning to get the hang of it slowly. But it's lovely to be here, and we see very much a burgeoning and a growing relationship with the Silverstone Technology Cluster. I think there's a lot in common that we have, as we're discovering, I'm sure, during the sessions today. So we're delighted to be affiliated with STC and with Pim and the team, and we're looking forward to working more closely with you and collaborating on many things going forward. So we're delighted to be here. If I could have the next slide, please, I'd be very grateful. Thank you. So if we click on, that's wonderful. So many of you will know this already, that the Treasury's Green Book for Public Procurement has 5 key themes under the element of social values. And this mirrors what many governments around the world are doing at the moment. And as we all know, lots of investors are looking at the environmental and social government and governance policies. Many investors are following an ESG path. So it's a really big thing that's moving forward now. And MOD in the past, I think, has probably managed to sort of avoid those social value issues. But there's been a renewed vigour from the Treasury and from the Cabinet Office to basically get the MOD on board with regard to social value issues. So it's becoming a really important thing. And the message today really is ignore this at your peril. If you want to be successful in defence, these are really important and will grow in importance over time. The 3 priority themes are, you can see them there, it's tackling economic inequality. You could largely call it levelling up, but I wouldn't use those words in Wales or in Scotland or Northern Ireland. But we know broadly what that means. It's creating new businesses, new jobs, graduate jobs, apprenticeships, new skills, that kind of thing. Fighting climate change, no surprise there, big priority for the government, and obviously leading to net zero ultimately. And then equal opportunity. I think we all recognise that defence and many other sectors is not diverse enough, with particular focus on disability and sort of workforce inequality. So equality, diversity, inclusivity. And defence needs to change its game. It needs to up its game and improve on that. But your businesses, if you're going to be successful in defence, you need to have a story behind each of those. More than a story, you need to demonstrate how you're actually moving forward with these. So every MOD tender now, over £5 million, unless it's a single source contract, will have those 3 priority social values applied to the tender. So of the 100%, the 100 marks, if you like, 10 of those will be directly linked to the 3 social value themes. So it's really important. I would argue, and Make UK Defence is very much positioned as the champion of SMEs and mid-tiers. We have a great relationship with the prime contractors, and we're very grateful for that. And we are very encouraging of them to reach out more effectively and more often to the SME and the mid-tier community, as indeed we do with MOD. But you could argue actually that the most important group, as the slide says, that will benefit from those, certainly from those 3 social values, is the very smallest businesses at the bottom of the supply chain. For those of you that are not perhaps in defence now, it's probably very similar to automotive and other sectors, but there can be many tiers of procurement through a large programme, for instance, like Tempest. So there may be 6 or 7 organisations in a vertical that will be involved in buying bits and buying subsystems and that sort of thing. So it will flow from MOD to Prime to Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Each of those will need to have they'll need to be able to demonstrate how they're helping to tackle economic inequality. So it isn't simply stopping at your front door, it needs to flow down through your supply chain as well. If you're buying bits or you're buying components or subsystems, you need to be able to demonstrate in your bid that you're helping to tackle economic inequality. It's an interesting one because that traditionally would have been very much a government-only role, but it's now being flowed down to industry. The second part really is that the other concern that we have, and we're fully engaged with MOD, and they're listening, and which is really encouraging, and working with us, is how do we ensure that those social values are flowed down consistently through the supply chain, so that when you get to level 3 or level 4 in a big program, you are absolutely confident that those 3 priority themes remain priorities in the tender evaluations as bids go into the procuring organization. If I go to the next slide, please. And this is a very brief snapshot. I've been a bit cheeky because this is a slide that we haven't launched yet, but we've just done a manufacturing survey in defence with over 100 companies responding. I just wanted to pull out a couple of things. The first one is the grey column, which is my business is not doing anything. So we're suggesting that 30% roughly of defence companies that are within membership of Make UK Defence have done nothing about social values. Well, that I can tell you is not good news. That needs to be addressed very rapidly if you're bidding into tenders. It's encouraging that 62% are doing something and are understanding it. But the other thing I pull out from this graph is that not only there's a very small percentage that you can see are ensuring that social values are embedded in an investment program. That's one thing to note. And the second one, ensuring that social values are embedded within your suppliers' investment programs, so into your supply chain, as I mentioned before. Next slide, please. And the impact is very obvious. They will probably become de facto in any PQQ, in any pre-qualification questionnaire. If you haven't got an answer, then you're losing 10% of the marks before you start. In a competitive tender, that's not good news, as we all know. You've got to both demonstrate that your company has policies and strategies, but also that you've got an investment program that underpins that. It doesn't need to be huge. If you're an SME, it can be a relatively small program, but you need to be able to demonstrate that that is happening. So if we just finally on the 3 top tips, and then I shall shut up. So the first one is ensure you've got a clear policy, strategy, investment program, really repeating the point above. The other point is you need to have a senior owner for each of those social values in your business. Don't devolve it down through the chain. It needs to be a leader within your business, a director or a senior manager, and they need to be a named individual. And in a small SME, that might be the same person for all of them. But in a larger business, they'll want to see demonstrable leadership with those social values. The second one is you've got to look at your pre-qualification and your bid process if you have one within the business. In defence, we're very, I would say, very strong in terms of designing a bid process that not only helps you to understand what the opportunity is and potentially to no bid, because that to me, a good defence company is one that's mature enough to say, I see that opportunity, I could possibly bid for it, but actually I'm not going to because I don't think I'm going to win. And that to me is a test of maturity of a business. So you've got to have your pre-qual and your bid process with social values built in, completely built in. And when you develop your win themes, when you go through your invitation to tender and you look at what the customer wants, then your win themes need to live and breathe those social values. You need to test every win theme. Maybe you've got 5 or 10 win themes that you've extracted out that you think are the real gems of your tender. You need to test each one of those against those 3 social values. And then finally, I think as well as having the policies, the strategy, the investment program, is to develop real life examples. They don't need to be huge. If you're a small business, but you need to look for things that will illustrate that you are living the dream, living the social values. Make UK Defence at the moment but we're just planning at the moment a post DSEI, the big trade show, a post DSEI social values webinar, where we'll bring in a number of specialists to look at different aspects of how an SME and a mid-tier might respond to social values. And then what we're looking to do then is to develop a social values toolkit, which will be a very sort of sleeves rolled up. How do we do this? How do we prepare and get ourselves fit, ready for that? If I may just thank you again for listening. You haven't had much choice, so thank you for sticking with it. There are my details. Love to hear from you if you've got any questions. Love to welcome you to Make UK Defence if you were interested, but that's not the purpose of this briefing. And a big thank you to Pim for inviting us again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks very much for that. If you could just stay on stage for a minute, I just had something I wanted to say in response to that presentation. And also, if I could ask people to pose questions or comments as well. It doesn't need to be a direct question. It can be comments about what you've just heard, because surely that's new and slightly worrying for all of you. So can you put your comments in, and we'll come to those in one sec. I mean, yeah, as I've just said, I think what you've just presented is that the companies will need to jump higher than they potentially thought they would, and rightly so. But here's a barrier, a challenge, as I see it, an opportunity to improve your business. But will the companies on this call want to go there? Are they now sitting there thinking, oh, I was all excited about that jet and working with BAE, but I'm not sure I've got the time, the energy, or the interest, and can't see the relevance even, maybe, of getting into this social value agenda. But my inkling is that this won't be the last time anyone at this sort of conference and within STC will hear this message, that it will come from other sectors too. And the ones that haven't caught up yet will, because of the way that society is changing, and the fact that we have talked before as the STC, we've got a thing called the STC Gender Equality and Diversity Committee, which I set up. And we've had a couple of workshops on that end of last year, beginning of this, talking about how important it is to have a diverse team, and to think about how your environment at work is fit for purpose for the 21st century, to attract in the right people and to keep them motivated, and not to have an environment where they get disheartened. But equally, for us with MEPC Women into Construction, trying to challenge some of those appalling figures where only 1% of women are in manual roles on construction sites in the UK. It's one of the poorest in the world in terms of the numbers. It's the barroom culture on sites. And I dare say there's a barroom culture in some businesses within the STC, but I'm not looking at anyone in particular because I can't see anyone in particular. But with that in mind, then the bar is set slightly higher. People are thinking, oh shucks, I was excited and now I've got this stuff to do. I think everyone in the business community that's serious about growing their business is going to need to get into this. How do we help them to do that then? Because that's what we're all about at the STC. One of the things I'd put to you is that we being, it's not the royal we, it's me and Pim, with Christiana Parche, who helped with Dare to be Different, as set up the Williams Advanced Engineering programme back in the day. She's a STC ambassador. And the three of us have talked about setting up a ESG group for Silverstone Technology Cluster. Actually, the Formula E teams are really into this. And so they're the first ones that we started talking to about it. But it would be fantastic if we could ask you and Make UK as a partner of STC to perhaps get involved in that ESG group to widen it out to the defence sector. And I'm pretty sure there'll be others like you in other sectors that will want to come in. And so that we, I suppose, give the businesses in our community the sort of first mover advantage on this. You heard it, you knew it was coming, now let's try and fast track you through this process in the how of how do you embed social values, and this toolkit that you're talking about, perhaps we can bring that to our members quickly and start really getting into the realities of what does this mean then. This isn't talk, this is action. What do companies need to do? What does an SME in engineering look like if it's got inclusive managers managing diverse teams? What's the vision? What do they need to aspire to, and how do we do that? Don't know if you want to come in on what I've just said, Andrew, before we open it up to anyone else that has a comment.
I'd love to, Ros. Thank you very much, and we would love to collaborate on that. I think we as an organisation ourselves in Make UK and Make UK Defence have a long road to travel and need to move quickly on this as well. So I think we're sharing the pain, but I think the advantage that we have is that we can call on a number of sort of expert organisations. So we have something called the Competitive Advantage Programme, which is it's a new service that we're providing, but we're basically behind each question that we ask a company or the owner or the managing director of a company, behind each question about their people strategy, their productivity, their sales and marketing, their access to supply chain, their supply chain resilience, all those kind of things. Behind each one, we have a company or a partner that is there to help our members. It's a paid for service, but it's a not-for-profit for us. It's simply as a service to help our members. So the toolkit, what we're planning to do is to run a webinar probably in early September, or probably actually mid-September after DSEI. And the idea would be that's the kickoff to then develop this toolkit that will help SMEs and mid-tiers. I think to echo your comments, I think, and I'm sure you know this much better than me, but in terms of investors, that's definitely the whole ESG agenda is becoming very, very, very prevalent. Lots of investors switching to sort of ethical ESG type investments. And I think that will force all the big listed companies, FTSE 100, FTSE 250, right down through the supply chain. They will have to adapt that. And I think one of the, it's not a criticism, but one of the concerns we have with MOD is how they measure the spend with the SME community, because it's done through a questionnaire, and there's no audit or checking process on that system. So what we'd like to do, and we'd like to look at it from the other end of the telescope, potentially working with JOSCAR, using JOSCAR as the way of working out how much money we're actually spending with SMEs. And I think by doing that, that will shine a light even more strongly onto the SME community in terms of delivering the social values. So it's we're going through the journey ourselves. We'd love to work with you on it and to help our members and indeed your members.
That would be great. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? We're setting a bar high, but there's help, and it's early information. And Pim and the STC team will help the companies on this call to understand what's needed and make sure that time isn't wasted. That things that they need to do are clear, and we can help them with that. Yeah, it's responding as a representative of a pension fund, an investor, just to say to people that it's not about greenwash or jumping on a bandwagon. The reason that the investment community is interested in environmental, social and governance is because the investments are made for the long term, and it'd be a bit of a shame if the long term didn't exist. So it's about managing that risk. It's about recognising the fact that you need growth and for people to flourish and for the environment to be safe, so that the long term exists. So that's the practical reason why the investment community is getting involved with it. And people like me, it's music to my ears, because I want to work for an organisation that cares about that stuff, and that then obviously attracts in lots more people that also care, and then you become more of a values driven business because of the culture in your organisation rather than pure value driven. And that's the key to avoiding future economic crises as well. So there's a lot behind it, and it's sincere, I think, is key. And I think I'm hoping that, and I'm sure it's the case with industry, that it's a sincere and necessary move to make sure that opportunities are open for all, and that actually businesses get access to all the right people, all the bright young things, and all the people returning to work, and that we don't put anyone off and limit our choice of skills that are coming into our businesses. So thank you for that, Andrew. Let me just have a look and see if we have any. I don't have any direct questions. I have comments coming through. And I tell you what I'd like to do, if I can, just briefly before we break, is if I can invite the panel back to the stage. I think that would be good to have everybody on that has spoken. If we can have it be a PIM question more than a question for me, if PIM can invite all the speakers back to the stage, if that's possible. And we just have a quick chat between us before we let people go off and network.
Ros, I just saw a message from Andrew Cowdery, actually. I just wondered if I might just respond to that briefly. Would that be okay?
Go for it, yeah.
So, Andrew, thank you for the question. I think it is the ambition of government and the industry primes to increase their SME spend. As you know far better than me, Andrew, the size of defence programmes don't always lend themselves to the SME community, but certainly the supply chain, we are seeing positive momentum. I believe MOD wants to move from 22% of spend with SMEs up to 25%. However, that still leaves it lagging behind central government as an average, which is 33%. So, and it may be the nature of defence, we're not entirely sure, but we certainly would like to encourage that. And it would be interesting to talk, at greater length on this. I think we need to. A lot of the work that we're doing in the MOD's SME working group is trying to address some of these issues, looking at things like framework agreements where companies sign up to provide an agreed rate and an agreed set of services, and making sure that SMEs have access to those frameworks and that they're structured in a good enough way to enable the SMEs to make the most of them. And then I think it's dialogue, I think, is the biggest thing that we need, and making sure that the SME champions, which exist in all the big primes, which are named individuals, that their job to wave the flag for the SME community inside their organizations is a key role, I think. And for those SME champions to listen to the SMEs through the trade associations like ADS and Make UK Defence, but also directly with the SMEs. And that's where we come in. We can broker those conversations if it's of help, but of course you have your own relationships as well. So it's dialogue, and I think it's using these strange things on the sides of our head, just as much me as anyone in the prime or
well, I think Peter and John are good at that at HMGCC, hopefully. Hopefully. But yeah, Andrew, did you want to come back on that at all?
Only to say the reason I posted that question was in part to stimulate a little bit of feedback from the audience, in that I think what I've seen over the last 2.5 years is wider government, but also the Ministry of Defence specifically, wanting to recognise that they just don't want industry to change, they're making change as well. And I would say over my career, I've seen a lot of requests of government to ask industry to do things when they don't do anything at all. So the faster, cheaper, better approach was all on industry to do things differently. I think now we're seeing very positive intervention from government to say they will change, but in order they want to see industry and academia change as well. So, the level of investment that we've talked about, there's a lot of additional money available within the MOD budget for science and technology, research and development. A lot of that will be of interest to STC, I hope, because it's investing in the technology and the intellectual property which can then be exploited. And, Andrew will know very well, MOD had some really difficult discussions over many, many years on ownership of intellectual property, i.e. if the MOD paid for it, they wanted to own it. And now they've changed that approach because it was very difficult for primes, but more particularly for small, medium-sized businesses who rely on their intellectual property to actually add value to the business, that now things are changing. And so we're seeing very much government recognizing that their procurement and contract conditions need to change to invite and be more attractive to SMEs. And I just like to get that message across, as Andrew's done, that, you know, I believe it's a more attractive market for those involved in maybe non-MOD areas to want to get involved, and particularly the opportunities for dual use technology is advancing at pace, particularly in computing and micro and semiconductors, where you know, those advances are being driven by the commercial sector, but being adopted in the defence sector. Thank you.
Andrew, I think it'd be, sorry, just to jump in.
Peter and John, go ahead. Yeah.
Be very good for us to have a further conversation, because I think with the SMEs we need to get our language right and our language consistent, because we have that same experience that you know, the business imperative to change is like the unstoppable force, and we've hit a few unmovable objects en route, but there's things are starting to change, and part of our approach at this stage, we still have some objects that we need to move, but we think the processes are in place now. We have a new chief scientific officer who's just joined us in July, who comes much more from the commercial world.
Yeah, he's a venture capitalist, so he's going to be a bit more of a risk taker, yeah. I think, and I think he was specifically chosen for that reason as well.
So our approach up until now is could be perceived as being a little bit hesitant because we have some of these immovable objects to deal with, but that change is coming, and we're seeing it from all across our partners, seeing and feeling the same. But it's going to take a little while, but I think we will get there.
And Peter and John, whilst you're on there, would it be possible for you to comment? I won't ask you for your direct figures, but in terms of where you're at on the ESG agenda and perhaps the diversity of your teams within, are you conscious of the need for, or do you have a good diverse range of people working in the organisation coming, you know, so women, people with disabilities, people from the Black, Asian, minority ethnic or LGBTQ plus groups?
So I head up the LGBT network in our organisation, and I know it's very strong. We have a really clear agenda to have a diverse, we know the value of diverse teams, so of diverse thought. We know that diverse teams make balanced risks. We also need to be representing the community that we're serving as well. So just having all the same people in our team is not representing our communities out there. So yes, there is, I think we do, certainly in our organisation, we do pretty well on that, I think. We do STEM outreach into local schools as well, and there we have our gender networks go out and deliver those STEM talks as well. So, you know, young people can see what we're doing here, and they can really resonate there. So it's not just about, you know, certain environments.
But we're also in a couple of years into a journey with this now. The mission and the vision of the organisation around Black and mixed race and ethnic minorities, LGBTQ, all these things are all well placed and well seated in our organisation. There's a lot of effort people like Peter are leading on this.
So I think, and I think it's a great advantage for us, because we know that adversaries don't do that well on this, and I think that really gives us a good opportunity to be ahead here. Yes, it does. Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's really interesting. And Susan, can I ask you the same question? You knew it was coming.
No, absolutely. So I think from two sides, I think there's who we are working with, so that diversity and inclusion, and picking up on Andrew, the two Andrews, in terms of increasing that SME involvement. We do have high levels of SMEs, but actually to unlock what we need to do for the future, that needs to look different types of companies, etc., to look at the how and also the what in terms of what technologies we need. But in terms of even just from our sort of diversity and inclusion agenda, it's massive from a company viewpoint. certainly in the air sector, we're a global business, so we operate within different markets. So we have a lot of focus around indigenous capability in certain countries that we're absolutely supporting those countries with. But certainly we've got key targets, metrics, awareness. We do a lot of training around non-bias and exploring in quite a wide range, because we absolutely, similar to Peter and John, absolutely understand the value of having that diversity of thought and the ability to meet the challenges, but also support the people that work for us as well.
Brilliant, thanks Susan. And Simon, just to get finally before we close and allow people to go and network with each other, what's your response and your take, honestly, on this? Because obviously you've worked at Cosworth and RML in the defence sector. This is a sort of new agenda for everyone, and rightly so. What are your feelings and your sort of initial response to this? Were you expecting it, and where are you on the journey?
I thought that might be coming my way. I think it's not just a defence related thing. It's key across, to be a good business, and as an SME, you've got to engage with that and move forward with it as much as you can. I mean, sometimes we're limited in our resources, but obviously it's a really important side of the business. It's embedded into our vision and values as a business. Our senior management team, we're almost a 50-50 split male female, so the senior directors.
That's very good.
And we're heavily engaged in it. As I said, it's not really defence related. We see it coming through automotive, motorsport to a certain extent, not quite so much, but it's getting there. And
it's coming.
It's
the
coming,
Hamilton report.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really important, and it's just about being a good business. It's not really necessarily relating to this specifically. So, and we see it in tender processes, as I said, not just in defence, in aerospace, in across multi sectors. You're seeing it, as mentioned earlier. It's in the bid process. It's in your pre-qualification questions. So, yeah, really important as an SME, and I think that's where Silverstone Tech Cluster can hopefully help the smaller SMEs as well. I mean, we're a SME, but we're 110 people, so there is quite a few of us to spread the load almost. But I think maybe the cluster can help some of the smaller SMEs especially.
Brilliant, thanks, Simon.
Rob,
so unless anyone has anything to add, yes, go ahead.
One quick comment, just to pick up on something Simon says, and this is something that I've heard only a few times in an organisation. It makes good business sense to be diverse, and it has a positive impact on the business. And I think sometimes we talk about it in terms of, oh, it's the right thing to do, but actually no, it's also good business sense to do it. And I think that's right. The message we need to get across.
Absolutely, and also obviously thinking about our carbon footprint as a business, and I think that's where some of the work that the SMEs are doing will come in, because they can make product bespoke, cleanly, without having lots of waste. They can trial things and prototype things quickly, so you're not getting into a process of doing too much work before you try something. And I'm thinking particularly about things like additive manufacturing, and with light weighting as well on a product that makes it super strong and lightweight. And there's a lot of that going on within the cluster, as well as all the metrology and CFD and expertise in things like battery technology, which we could bring into the thinking in the defence sector. So I think there's so much to go at here. I really hope that the people that this has been for, the audience, have got a lot out of this. It's recorded. Tim, I don't know if we want to invite you back on just to sort of say a few words to close from the point of view of next steps and getting into the networking. Before we do that, if I could just say thank you very much to Andrew Cowdery, our business fellow for Be the Business, for getting this organised and getting people around the table. I think it's been fantastic. It's exactly what we were hoping for in terms of working with Be the Business, to have this sort of insight and level of interaction. And thank you so much to our other speakers for giving your time to explain where you're coming from, and really hope that this 2 hours has been fruitful for you, because I know our community, if they're given the chance, will want to work with you and help solve your problems, and take your lead, but get involved in these challenges. So thank you all for a good 2 hour session. So I'll do what Pim was going to do, which is to say that the next session is to go into the networking rooms and do what you were doing at the beginning. I think it's actually particularly important for today to do that. If our speakers can stay around, and you can see, you know, their names, and you can see their little motifs. If they put themselves on different tables, and then I know that there's lots of messages from the audience saying what people do, but if you could go and join those tables with people and have the chance now for the next 10 minutes or so to introduce each other. And if you don't get the time to speak to the people you want to speak to, let Pim know, and Pim will do what he always does well, which is the one-to-one connections. His camera and his mic isn't working, so the infection that Andrew had has been passed on. Promise it's not COVID. But yeah, Pim, you can hear me, but you can't speak or speak. So can you do the necessary on the screen to send people back to the networking